Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Brandon and I'm very excited today because today we're starting over our Build a Gaming PC series for 2015. We try to do this a few times a year, but there's something that's going to be different about these next few weeks. I'm going to be building a PC each and every single week until we get through the entire series. And we're starting off with the super cheap PC build, $150 gaming computer, the cheapest gaming computer, which I've even thought about building in the past. And we're going to benchmark it and we're going to see exactly what we can do for that amount of money. Now, I know a lot of my PC elitist friends wrote off this build when I started it. They said, hey, you shouldn't be even doing this build. But I remember being a kid and having a Packard Bell Navigator, adding RAM, adding whatever I could to that computer so I could play Master of Orion, like way back when in the day. So, you know what? I remember not having money back then. I remember being a broke kid, a broke teenager, and just trying to play PC games. So I wanted to put this computer together for your brother, that kid down the street, or that kid, maybe people in another country where hardware is very expensive. I lived in Brazil for a few years, and the PS4 came out there, and it was like $1,800, the equivalent of $1,800. The Xbox One was like $1,000. So hardware is a lot more expensive in other places, and if you want to be a PC gamer and be able to play some of today's most popular games, you know, like a League of Legends, a Minecraft, a Hearthstone, a CSGO type game, then this type of computer should be able to do it for you. All right, here's the moment you've been waiting for. Here is the build, and as you can see, I'm using a micro ATX build. This is the Zion Performance micro ATX case. Only cost me $20. That was the real reason I bought it. I knew beforehand that it had an incompatibility with the motherboard. It doesn't have any headers for the USB 3 in the front, but you can use just a cable to convert that to a USB 2 in the front. But overall, I just bought the case because it was cheap and it had a 120 millimeter fan. And really, that's all I needed. Taking a look inside, there's a few things that I just want to point out, because if I don't point them out, you're going to point them out to me. And that is that I use the CS550M power supply here, and I'm recommending on my website and in this build that you use a 500 watt EVGA 80 plus certified power supply. I found that for $25 on NCIX, but I didn't want to go buy a power supply just to have a power supply. I've got a few power supplies lying around here, and so kind of the deal with this PC building series where I'm actually going to build these computers is that parts that affect performance I'm going to purchase and buy, but parts that I already have, there's no real reason to buy them. So I'll go find a cheap replacement part like that EVGA 500 watt power supply, and I'll make that recommendation while I might use a different power supply. So I'll just throw that out there up front. Also, for CPU/graphics card, we're using an A6-7400k APU. It only costs $39.99. I'll go over why I went with that exact model in a second. For RAM, we're using a kind of a two-fold setup, and it's a little confusing, but we'll go through it here in a minute. My test bed used 8 gigabytes of Ari's G-Skill RAM, and we also tested it in a 1x4 configuration. And I wanted to do that because for this $150 PC, you actually only have enough money to buy 1x4 RAM, not 2x2. But I knew you were going to need the dual channel memory. At the same time, I didn't want to buy the 2x2 kit. So might be a little bit cheating, but you can at least see the effects of the difference between the dual channel and the using single channel memory in this case, which happens to be a pretty big one when you are using an APU. Other parts that we used were a 320 gigabyte hard drive from Western Digital, and the F2 A6-8HM-H motherboard from Gigabyte. I got this thing for $29.99 after rebate on Amazon. Thought that was pretty good. The rebate should still be good this month. You guys can even go there and find that price. So all in all, if you got the same prices that I did, this build would come in at around $149. Now I'll go over the performance aspects and why I chose each part. All right, so the first part I want to talk about is the CPU/APU configurations. We only had $40 to spend. You know, when you talk about budget configurations, the immediate recommendation that I normally make is, hey, go get a G3258 and a GTX 750 or an R7 260X. And that really is a fantastic and cheap option, but if you add that option up, it basically covers our entire budget. So we need something much cheaper here, around $40. And what I came up with in my research after doing a lot of reading was the AMD A4-7300. Now, the AMD A6-6400K is an unlocked processor for about $10 more. They're both Richland and nearly identical, but we can't go out and buy a CPU cooler here. We can't do that. If we went and spent $30 on that, you'd be much better off going with a more expensive APU, right? So we're gonna just, if you're gonna overclock, you're just gonna overclock whatever you can anyway. And we didn't have that extra $10 to spend. So we went with the AMD A4-7300 APU, but I just want to talk about other options kind of in that area. You can go with an AMD Athlon 5350. That's an 8-socket AM1 processor. It's a Kaveri core processor with 4 cores. But overall, you only get R3 graphics with that processor or APU, and so it's just not really the best deal. Now, if you've got about $20 more to spend, probably the next jump up I would make, without getting into that range where you'd probably prefer to buy a dedicated graphics card and a processor, would be the AMD A6-7400k, which is a Kaveri core APU, whereas these other two I was talking about are Richland. Even though the A4 is a 7300 model, it's still a Richland core APU. And this is the 7400K is an FM2 socket, and it has that new HSA technology for AMD that has the computer cores. So AMD lists it as having 6 computer cores with 2 CPU and 4 GPU cores, and it has R5 series graphics. So this is a solid step up from where I was, but again, we don't have the extra $25 to spend in this case. Moving on to the motherboard, I was just trying to find something cheap and reliable. I was perfectly thrilled that the Gigabyte GA-FD2 A68HM-H was $30 after rebate. You get, as you can see here, you get a couple USB 2.0 and USB 3.0 ports in the back, and even an HDMI port. I thought that was great. And overall, it's just been a really good board. I did have a little bit of an issue with the RAM that I tried, and I'm not positive that it was the board itself, but I couldn't get it to the XMI profile to work. I could only get that RAM to 1600 megahertz, and I really wanted to overclock it to like 2133 so I could show the performance differential there. But overall, you get what you get at this price point, which is a $30 motherboard that works and is decent quality. You know, I've never really had any problems with Gigabyte motherboards, so certainly in this for $30, I really can't complain. All right, now I want to go over my RAM configuration because this could be a little confusing if you're coming in. I actually went and looked for RAM everywhere, and what I wanted to get was a 2x2 kit for about $25, but I couldn't find that. The cheapest I could find was $35 because I wanted to run this in dual channel. So what we could afford for this build was a single stick of 4 gigabyte RAM, some PNY RAM, and I didn't really just want to go buy that because I already had a few different sets of RAM here. So I just used G-Skill Ari's RAM. I used the 1x4 configuration and then a 2x4 to test. And you guys can really see the difference in between dual channel and single channel here when you're using an APU. It's like a huge difference. In some cases, up to a 40% change in FPS. So it's definitely worth it here to either go with the 2x2, or what I'd recommend is you go ahead and splurge, and you guys will find these deals. Last Christmas I was able to find this G-Skill Ari's RAM set for about $45 to $50, and they're still available regularly around $50. So I would recommend that you go that. Is that cheating? Well, you know, it's kind of on the edge, but you know what? You're gonna need 8 gigabytes eventually, so you might as well do it now, and you can use that RAM across multiple configurations and multiple computers, and so that's what we did. All right, now let's take a look at the benchmarks. I know that's what a majority of you are interested in, to see exactly what this A4-7300 setup will do. And just to state it right off, I didn't build this computer to be able to play the likes of Battlefield 4 or a Witcher 3. If you have $150 for your budget and you're looking for a $60 game, my suggestion would be to drop that $60 into your hardware. Update your computer, man. Do that first before you go buy a game like this, and then find a way to get that game cheaper later, or buy some cheap games on G2A or whatever you're going to do. But as you can see, the A6-7400 did a relatively good job once it had a 2x4 RAM configuration. And the 1x4, it was choppy. It was not nearly as good. I put in that second stick, and it was like a night and day difference. Tomb Raider, low 720p, you could get just around 50 frames, which is more than playable. I did that for a while, and it was fine. You could also go to medium 720p. I'm the type of gamer that would rather play at low settings on 720p and 50 frames than medium at 720 at 30 frames. But that may differ on gamer. But I guess that comes from my FPS experience, just going for frames rather than detail all the time. But Battlefield 4, I played that in various settings in my 1x4 settings, my 1x4 configuration. I didn't even want to show that. That was pitiful. That was a horrible experience. I put in another stick of RAM and low 720p. I was playing multiplayer here, just so you know. Multiplayer, I was able to get around 40 frames per second. But occasionally, just in loading and in some of the parts, it would start to stutter just a little bit and have some artifacting. I wouldn't recommend you play a game like Battlefield 4 on this unless you're willing to tune the resolution. There's a feature called, I think it's called resolution tuning or something, that allows you to take the resolution down, resolution scaling. You take the scaling down, and if you put it around 80%, then Battlefield 4 will run really well. That's if you have to play Battlefield 4. Again, probably not a game I would recommend with this configuration. BioShock Infinite, we also did fairly well here. Medium 720p settings at about 30 frames. I thought that was pretty good and definitely playable. If you want more frames, go like just go in like a low setting 720p. And you'll come up with about 36. So pretty good overall. I played lots of rounds of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and that was just fine. Low settings, 1080p. We got around 55 frames, and it was enough for me to play and win a couple rounds. I don't have an extreme amount of experience in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but I just wanted to test it because I know a lot of you are interested in that game, and so I'd bring that here. So anyway, those are the benchmarks. I'd love to know what you guys think about them. I'm sure that you would have liked me to test other games, but I think you can draw a lot of conclusions from these benchmarks when you go out and compare them to other things, other benchmarks that have been made. I know that for a computer like this, just looking at these benchmarks, I know that it'll play Skyrim, Diablo 3, League of Legends, Hearthstone, World of Warcraft, no problem. So a computer like this does hold some value for someone who plays those types of games, who doesn't have an extreme budget or would rather spend that budget towards other games. All right, so that's the first in our Build a Gaming PC series. Hopefully you guys didn't mind those few tricks I'm going to use in the future to be able to keep bringing these to you. I think what we'll end up doing is I'll just try to sell these things, and if I could sell them for a slight loss, that's fine. I'm totally willing to do that for the channel. But what I'll do is I'll sell the case, the motherboard, and the APU in this instance, and like keep the power supply, RAM, and hard drive for another build, right? So that I could just keep going. That's the dream here that I've had since I started this channel 2 years ago, and since I started as a vlogger 5 years ago. You guys might not know about this, but I started blogging about Christmas gifts and whatever I could, just try to make an online income. I graduated in finance and started in a financial services industry, worked there for 5 years, and towards the end of that 5 years, I started blogging and doing pretty well, and I said sayonara to my boss, and it was like the best thing ever. But times have changed over the years, and situations have changed, and I really want to follow my dreams, follow my passion, and that's hardware, that's gaming, and that's bringing real things to you guys with unbiased information, with real benchmarks. I mean, this A6-7400, just try to go to find benchmarks out there other than what I just gave you. You probably can't find them. So I want to bring like real parts that I would really put my money where my mouth is and bring this to you guys so you guys have credible information. Anyway, hopefully you guys like this build. I'd love to know what you think about it. You can help me out on this journey to start building a computer each and every single week. Now, at first, we're just going to get through the Build a Computer series because I can't guarantee that I can build a computer every single week forever. I don't know what kind of impact that would have on my financial situation, but we're going to do this for as long as we can, and you can help me by sharing this video with anybody you know, by pressing that like button, even by commenting in the description below. That helps this video to get more exposure, and obviously by subscribing to the channel, you'll be able to come back and see more of these builds that I'm going to be bringing each week. So hopefully you guys like it. Again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Valeu!